You try to move on because that's what you should do. That's what you should want to do, right? But it's harder to do when it's not genuinely where you are. Let's talk grieving the past on today's Dear Single Women podcast. Welcome to episode 2, everybody. This is an episode that has been on my heart for a very long time. This whole podcast has been on my heart for a while, but now's the time to make it. I believe it will really be more authentic now because it is where I currently am again, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you're new here, welcome. My name is Shanentra. Welcome to the Dear Single Women podcast, the podcast for women who are healing, growing, living, and loving their lives on their terms. Today, we're going to talk about grieving and why it's a necessary step in your healing journey. I find that we really want to move on from hurtful things. Self-preservation demands that we put up a guard and we do what we need to do so that we don't get hurt anymore. And what's more hurtful than reliving something that broke your heart? But avoiding that step is really a recipe for disaster. The pain doesn't go away by pushing it under the rug and pretending that it's not there. It comes up again and again and again. And to really heal from it, you have to grieve. Why do we have to grieve? Because there was a loss, a significant loss. Outside of actual death, I don't believe there's a greater loss than a loss like a loss of love, right? Money can be remade, dreams can be reignited, but a loss of a love, especially if it's permanent, that's a pain, that's an ache that doesn't go away. Some things that we need to grieve as single, healing, loving, growing women, we need to grieve every iteration of what it was to you. And it's not enough to grieve the whole person or the relationship as a whole. You have to grieve what specifically that person and that relationship meant to you at that time. If I can give you an example from my healing journey, I had to grieve the loss of feeling seen by this particular person. We'll call him Devin. Devin really had a way of making me feel seen, and not as in you're beautiful and I like you sort of way, but the little things. Like growing up, I was always told and made fun of by family and, my loved ones, like, oh, you talk too much. Oh, there she goes talking again. She always has something to say. And Devin would never make me feel that way. I could say the littlest thing and his ears would perk up. Like, oh, what's she talking about? I could talk about things that were on my heart, on my mind. He'd always listen. He'd always have a serious face. He'd always take it seriously, what I was saying. I felt seen in that way. I felt heard. From the big things to the little things. He paid attention. He liked the way my brain works. And I don't get that anymore. Just where I am currently in my life, in my healing journey, I don't have the Devin there to hear me and listen to me and make me feel as though my words really matter to someone. That's something I have to grieve. At not just grieving the person, but that specific thing that I got out of that relationship that I am not currently getting now. What that meant to me, the significance of what it meant to me, that to be listened to, I had to grieve that. So every iteration of what that relationship meant to you, you have to grieve it. You have to grieve the time you wasted, right? We lost a lot when you are not with that person anymore and it is not what it used to be. You could feel like you wasted a lot of time on that. What does it mean now? Where you are currently, what did that actually play in the long run of your life? You got to grieve that, feeling like you wasted your time. You have to grieve not showing up for yourself, accepting less than you deserved at that time. I often feel that, like, wow, and now in a more healed state on the other side of that situationship, I feel like I didn't show up for me. And I'm like, oh man, I wish that could happen now, because I would do something way different. I would speak up for myself. I would not accept that. I would let them know that wasn't okay. I have to grieve that I did the best I could at the time. But that feeling of, man, I wish that I had stood up more for me, showed up more for me, been more vocal and more present in that situationship, perhaps things would have gone different. Well, we will never know, but that's a loss that you have to let go of. You have to grieve what things have become. Why do we need to do that? Because it's not what we wanted at one time. At one time, you wanted more from that person. At one time, you wanted more from that relationship. Maybe not now, but at one time you did. And so no matter what it is now, it's not what you wanted it to be. You have to grieve that, right? You had hopes, you had dreams, you had things you wanted, and it didn't come to fruition. And that's not just relationships. You have to grieve what you thought it would be with that person, but you have to grieve what you hope to get out of that. Maybe you wanted a marriage. Maybe you wanted children with that person. Maybe you wanted more than just what you got, but you never got it. You have to grieve that loss. It is a loss. I want to let you know that grieving will happen throughout your lifetime. It's not just the one and done deal. As I stated in the beginning, we are often so quick to just try to move on because we know it's what we should do and what we should want to do, right? We shouldn't want to be stuck in the past while everyone else is going on with their lives and their futures. And so in order to get away from that, we don't allow ourselves the time we need to grieve. But grieving is going to happen throughout your life because we have memories. We're able to recall the things that has happened to us in our past, the experiences we've had, what we've meant to that person, what that person meant to us. We as single women, we tend to do more of that recalling, right? Because not maybe so much is going on in your life right now. Maybe you're just on low power mode and you're just healing and growing and recuperating, which I recommend everyone take time to do. Don't rush that process either. But we as single women might think of the past more. Or we may be thinking of how our new thing that's going on compares to the transformational experience we had in our past with that person. So you got to allow yourself to grieve as those things come up. I don't want you to squelch the feelings as they arrive. There's healing on the other side of it if you allow yourself to go through it. And the good thing, really, about the grieving process is that it's just between you and God and those that you choose to let in. No one's keeping tally of how many times you've talked about that past circumstance, how many times you've felt that feeling of loss. No one's tallying that up. And if you have friends in your life that are, you got to find some new friends. Because I'll tell you, if you know me in the real world, I'm going to talk about Devin, okay? I'm going to talk about that past. I'm going to talk about those experiences. Ask my friends. They know. And they allow me to do it. They give me that space. No, I never got a here we go again. I needed that space to grieve. A thought, a memory, something comes up. It reminds me of the loss. That it wasn't things didn't turn out the way I wanted them to. And I need that space to grieve and to talk about it. So it's between you and God and whoever you choose to allow into that space. Give yourself the permission to grieve as long and as much as you need to. I want you to have this mindset of, I'm going to take the time I actually need to get to the other side of my healing journey. I'm not going to rush this process. To rush this process is a disservice to me. Affirm yourself in that. It may take years. For me, it has taken years. And every now and again, something will still come up. And I don't rush that. Okay, more is being revealed that I need to heal from. It was a transformational experience. And I'm not going to treat it like it was a transient experience. It wasn't fleeting. It was a deep, real thing. Give yourself the time you need to grieve your past and everything that person meant to you and every dream you attach to that person. If it's gone, give yourself that time to really grieve and heal from it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.